Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at some very cool spice in the Open Master League featuring a fully powered up level 50 Galarian Zapdos. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Ryan, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Galarian Zapdos can get up to almost 4,000 CP at level 50, and this trainer is running Counter, Ancient Power, and its hardest hitting nuke move of Brave Bird. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at level 50 Galarian Zapdos brave birding everything it can in the Open Master League. We've got a battle of DIALGA in the first match, Origin versus OG. Opponent is going to switch out of the mirror and send in Mewtwo. This is a very surprising decision by the opponent, as they switched from what is a neutral matchup to a losing one, as their Mewtwo doesn't even farm up to a Focus Blast, so it's a very safe no-shield by the DIALGA. Ironhead is going to be shielded, Mewtwo over-farming a massive amount of energy. They have back-to-back Side Strikes, so DIALGA is perfectly fine to no-shield here. You can just tank one, shield one, farm all the way down, and exit with just about a Draco Meteor loaded to get the shield back from basically anything in the format. They're going to send in Kyogre. We're going to see the save switch to Shadow Mewtwo. In comes DIALGA. Oh boy. And this Mewtwo is on Focus Blast. Farming up here. Going for the Focus Blast. Do they respect it? They do not. That's a one-hit KO. Oh no. Absolute nightmare for the opponent. Shadow Mewtwo firing off the Side Strike. Side Strike is shielded and it's charge attack priority. They shielded a Side Strike. So now it's time to get brave birded. You do have the Draco Meteor, but that Draco Meteor will not be needed today, as in comes Galarian Zapdos. Zapdos can survive the Surf, but saying, you know what, out of an abundance of caution, I will shield up the Surf and then go for the Brave Bird. There was a Kyogre on the screen, but there is not anymore. Brave Bird picks up the KO, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading DIALGA Origin against the new kid on the block, Dawnwings Necrozma. Dawnwings is so incredibly scary in these type neutral matchups because Moongeist Beam inflicts massive damage on just about everything. DIALGA commits the shield, gets baited with the Dark Pulse, and returns fire with the Roar of Time. Honestly, the Ironhead damage plus a couple more Dragon Breaths would be enough to knock out. We are going to see Dawnwings commit the shield, and they're firing off another charge attack. This could be the Moongeist. We see the double shield. It's a double bait from the opponent. They will make the Moongeist. They bank the Moongeist, switching out with 1 HP. And that's going to be very scary to deal with in the endgame. The Roar of Time gets no-shielded. In comes the Zapdos. Will the opponent just send in the Moongeist? No, they will not. They're going to save that Moongeist for later, and they're going to send in Palkia Origin instead. So they do have the Dawnwings in the back with the loaded Moongeist Beam. The Ancient Power bait is successful, and that's going to force Palkia's hand. Palkia forced to fire off energy, the Aqua Tail plus the farm down, and now in comes the Shadow Mewtwo. Opponent needs to make the Spatial Rend, but they do not get there. Shadow Side Strike will be able to KO, and this game is just going to be a win. The opponent has the Moongeist loaded, but they don't have enough HP on Dawnwings. Moongeist Beam, one-hit KOs the Mewtwo. In comes the DIALGA, and DIALGA is able to take that game. Great lead in the next match, DIALGA Origin versus Palkia Origin. Opponent staying in this matchup, and they're not the best buddy Palkia either, which means they are just getting absolutely crushed in this matchup. DIALGA will commit the shield on the Spatial Rend, and the opponent is just going to let themselves get fully farmed down. That's a pretty massive surprise. In comes DIALGA. We're going to see a farming up to just shy of 100 energy and an Ironhead bait. The bait is successful, and now DIALGA will make it to the Roar of Time. The opponent, are they going to commit the final shield here? Yes, they're going to double shield, but they are going to get a really massive farm down. And that energy on DIALGA can be quite threatening later in the match. In comes Galarian Zapdos, crushing DIALGA with super effective counters. The shield on the Roar of Time. In the back, it's going to be Meloetta, and Meloetta is going to get smacked with a Brave Bird. Meloetta is very bulky, but even so, that does so much damage. The farm up, the switch, and the catch onto the Shadow Mewtwo, catching the Psyshock where it is going to be resisted. Mewtwo, these Psycho Cuts are surprisingly adding up onto Meloetta. Meloetta firing off another Psyshock. We're going to see the Psy Strike thrown. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded seeing Mewtwo just attempt at a farm down here, because if Mewtwo can't make the Psy Strike, then this actually could be a loss. Mewtwo doesn't get there. Oh no! And I think the decision to not farm down is actually going to lead to a loss here, as the Galarian Zapdos just does not have enough HP, and unfortunately that will be game over. Great lead in the next match, Dialga Origin versus Kyogre. Opponent immediately switches out into their own Dialga. Farming up just shy of the Iron Head, going to send in the Galarian Zapdos. Zapdos is going to be committed to shield, Dialga will go for the Iron Head, and I believe that means Dialga can make another Iron Head, so Zapdos is going to be forced to fire off the Ancient Power. Zapdos will be able to get the counter down after. Down a shield is a little bit awkward, but it can still make a Brave Bird versus the Kyogre, and Brave Bird will inflict massive damage unless the opponent is going to give the shield back. And we're going to see, unfortunately, quite a bit of lag there on the side of the Zapdos. Zapdos is able to make the Brave Bird. Brave Bird, massive damage to Kyogre. Kyogre only exits with a little bit over a Surf. They're unable to make a big move. And in the back, it's going to be a Charmer in Primarina. And this game is just a win. Primarina can do some truly amazing things in the Master League, but it is truly uniquely terrible against Mewtwo. As someone who, as a part of his climbing team, does use Primarina just cannot deal with Mewtwo whatsoever. In comes the Mewtwo, and you just cannot farm this thing down before it gets to way too many charge attacks. Mewtwo makes it to the Side Strike, and Side Strike will KO. Hopping into the next match, Dialga Origin versus Zacian. This is a bit of a core breaker for the team. In comes the Shadow Mewtwo. Opponent is on Snarl on the Zacian. We're going to see the Side Strike fired off. Side Strike would do massive damage. Zacian will commit the shield. Zacian farming up to the back-to-back wild charges. Mewtwo commits the shield. That's wild charge number 1. Opponent is going to switch into Dialga, and they do get the catch of the Side Strike. So a very unfortunate catch, but if you're the opponent's got to be pretty happy with how that went. Mewtwo could have potentially made the Focus Blast, but the opponent would have been able to make the Iron Head first, so instead just going to fire off the Side Strike. The Side Strike does get the shield, opponent will get a farm down, and they have so much energy available on this Dialga. Choosing instead of bringing Dialga into the mirror just to send in Galarian Zapdos. Zapdos up energy can inflict some significant damage with Brave Bird. Zapdos gets the shield call right on the Roar of Time. It's Palkia in the back, and let's see this Brave Bird. Let's go Zapdos. Brave Bird, massive damage, the switch to Dialga, and Dialga is still in a range where a close combat will not be enough to knock out. Opponent is running Play Rough and Wild Charge on the Zacian. They will need 2 Play Roughs to pick up the KO, and they just cannot get there. Dialga makes the Iron Head. Iron Head picks up the KO. In comes Palkia. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Great lead in the next match, Dialga Origin versus Mewtwo. Mewtwo, even if they do have Focus Blast, Dialga will outpace by 1 turn here. Dialga accidentally throws on alignment, giving a free Psycho Cut to the Mewtwo. And Mewtwo, Psycho Cut is such a quick energy generating move that giving Mewtwo free energy is often quite a scary thing. We're going to see the Side Strike bait get shielded, Mewtwo farming up to 2 more Side Strikes. Dialga not going to shield this time, and it will be the Shadow Ball. Dialga will be able to go for the Iron Head here. Dialga tries for the farm down, and here's where giving the free Psycho Cut means that Mewtwo makes the Shadow Ball, picks up the KO, and is able to win lead. And that is going to set up a nice farm down for the Shadow Mewtwo. Shadow Mewtwo energy is quite deadly, but not against Yveltal. Oh, this is really unfortunate. Yveltal, however, going to take a lot of damage from a Shadow Focus Blast. They no-shield the snipe attempt from the Zapdos, but it's Xerneas in the back. Oh, that is really, really unfortunate. Switch advantage would have been absolutely massive in this game, but unfortunately, at the beginning, throwing on alignment and then the decision to not throw the Iron Head is really going to come back to bite in a major way. Here, it looks like they just stopped tapping. Either that or there was a little bit of lag, but either way, there is no winning this game because Xerneas is going to be able to outpace, and even if Mewtwo can somehow get rid of the Xerneas, which it cannot because the Xerneas has a shield, there's still the Dark Pulse loaded on the Yveltal. So regardless, unfortunately, this game is going to be over, and we are going to see the Shadow Mewtwo. A little bit of the downside here. It hits very hard, but it also takes a lot more damage. Moonblast is going to get the KO. Moving to the next match, we've got a core breaker, Dialga Origin versus Ho-Oh. Dialga is going to throw a couple Dragon Breaths, safe switch to the Shadow Ho-Oh, and that little combination of throwing a couple Dragon Breaths and switching actually allows the Side Strike to be reached on perfect timing, so that's very well executed. Mewtwo can shield, and if the opponent stays in, you can just throw 2, fire off the Side Strike, and put a lot of pressure onto the opponent. Mewtwo throws 3 and the move, and that allows the Ho-Oh to switch. That's really unfortunate. That's why charge attack timing is so important versus Incinerate users. If you throw 2 in the move, they can never catch, but 3 in the move, they get the catch, they save the Ho-Oh, and now things are looking very difficult to win this game. We're going to see a shield. The Dialga does not have the legacy move, so opponent got the hundo, but unfortunately did not have access to that Roar of Time. Ancient Power fired by the Zapdos. Zapdos is going to be able to make it to another Ancient Power. This is double super effective damage. Can Ho-Oh hang on here? Ho-Oh barely hangs on. In the back, it's Palkia Origin, and it's Palkia versus Dialga. Dialga just gonna go for the Iron Head. Could have potentially committed to the Roar of Time here, because an Iron Head is not gonna do a lot of damage. The Palkia farms past a Spatial Rend. Palkia is going to be firing off a Draco Meteor. They have the Palkia without the move as well, but Ho-Oh has the charge attack loaded, and that's unfortunately going to be game over. But I think that game is a really good example of the difference in charge attack timing. With slightly more optimized mechanics, that game was a win, but unfortunately, the game does have a different result. For the second time this shoutcast, we have a Palkia Origin staying in versus a Dialga Origin lead, which again is quite surprising. Palkia can force a shield in the zeros, but Dialga just gets such a tremendous advantage. Judging by the fact that they're staying in, the only explanation for that is that the opponent is weak in the back. They're going to send in Landeras. Landeras is going to be met with an Iron Head bait. The Iron Head bait is successful. Dialga going to stay in here, try and make it to the Roar of Time, but losing charge attack priority. So Dialga, if it wants to force the final shield, is going to have to give up its final shield itself. Going for the Roar of Time. Roar of Time will inflict massive damage. We do see the shield. Dialga going to farm up the switch to the Shadow Mewtwo. Mewtwo is going to get outpaced here. They can fire off the Sandsear Storm. Sandsear will connect. Mewtwo going for the Side Strike. Opponent is going to make a catch onto Ho-Oh. Since this is debuffed, Side Strike will no longer 2-hit KO, which is a little bit unfortunate. Going to fire off the Side Strike. Could have done an extra Psycho Cut or 2 of damage, which in the grand scheme of things, Ho-Oh does live with a little bit of HP, but a Psycho Cut or 2 wouldn't have made the difference. And now it's all up to the Galarian Zapdos to try and clutch this endgame, which it should be able to do. As Zapdos is able to get the counter down, in comes the Landeras, and Stone Edge only hits for neutral here. This is where the unique typing on the Galar Zapdos comes in clutch, because Stone Edge only hits for neutral. You can make it to the Brave Bird, and Brave Bird is going to say good night to the Landeras. There's a new King of the Skies, and its name is Galarian Zapdos. Moving to the next match, tough lead for the Dialga Origin, leading into the Landeras. Choosing to throw one Dragon Breath and save switch to the Shadow Mewtwo. In comes Dialga. Oh my goodness. Can a Focus Blast land again? Dialga reaching for it, charging up, but the shield from the opponent. And this means that Shadow Mewtwo is just getting farmed down. Mewtwo just going to go for the Side Strike, knowing unable to make it to a potential second Focus Blast. So the opponent getting the shield call right now makes this matchup very, very awkward. In comes the Galarian Zapdos. Zapdos will commit the shield. It's the Iron Head from the Dialga. And Zapdos is going to have to double shield here, as we're going to see Dialga make it to another charge attack. Zapdos is going to no shield, but that's the Roar of Time. And now Dialga needs to try and 1v3, and it just cannot. Realistically, the third Pokemon from the opponent's team is not going to be known here, because Landeras can just fire off Sandsear after Sandsear and just has a truly massive pacing advantage. So we are going to see the shield, but the writing is 100% on the wall in this game. There's just no coming back at this point. Going to fire off another Iron Head. Iron Head is going to be shielded, and the opponent says, you know what? You do not get to see my third Pokemon, so the third Pokemon does remain a mystery, as Landeras is going to be able to take that win. Hopping into the final match, looking for a bit of redemption after that last match, picking up a pretty okay lead, Dialga Origin versus Tapu Bulu. We're going to see a switch out to the Shadow Mewtwo. A lot of teams that do run Tapu Bulu are very weak to Mewtwo. Tapu Bulu itself does very poorly against Mewtwo. Mewtwo, honestly, doesn't mind shielding here. We already see the no shield on the Nature's Madness, but that just does a ton of damage. Dialga going for the farm down and getting the farm down, but now it's time for Zapdos to farm. The Dialga farmed, so now Zapdos gets to do the same. Zapdos is going to be committing the shield here as Dialga fires off the Iron Head. Zapdos went for the Ancient Power. Honestly, I would have liked to see just a full farm down here, as the Ancient Power, you're not going to get a lot of value out of it as the Zapdos. Zapdos does get the farm down. And now, in comes Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu gonna be hit with the Brave Bird. The question is, do they know about the Brave Bird? Brave Bird does get no-shielded in the back. It's Landeras. Landeras now going to be hit with the Ancient Power. Ancient Power will deal some chip damage, and honestly, chip damage is very valuable at this stage of the game. farming up a lot with the Zapdos. Zapdos is just going to let this through. The Sandsear will KO. The opponent actually went for a Stone Edge there. A Sandsear would have been enough to KO, but regardless, DIALGA should be in an okay position, where DIALGA just has to survive one, and it will be able to do just that. Because Sandsear Storm, while it is super effective damage, DIALGA Origin is quite bulky, so it's going to be able to withstand the damage, make it to the Iron Head, and Iron Head, even a couple times debuffed, will be enough to knock out the Landeras and take the win. All in all, Galarian Zapdos at level 50 is incredibly cool, and I hope that one day, in a lucky trade, I'm able to get one good enough that I can power it up. Of course, I would definitely need the XLs, so the next time that regular Zapdos is in raids, I would probably have to raid it, but if I actually got a good one from a trade, then that would be some very nice incentive to do so. It's definitely on the list of fun Pokemon that if you support it well, you can get wins with. It's not by any means a must-have Pokemon, but being able to Brave Bird things and take advantage of that unique typing, especially against Pokemon like Landeras, looks to be quite a bit of fun. I do think these battles as well are a very good example of the importance of the mechanics in Go Battle League as well, because there were a couple games where we saw very clean mechanical play, being able to get wins, and a couple games where there were some errors in mechanics and some wins turned into losses. And that's going to be something where as you look to improve in Go Battle League, you're going to have some games where you're able to get the mechanics right, some games where you're not, but just continuing to work on stuff like charge attack timing, counting, and stuff like that will help, because you're going to see some of those close losses turn into wins. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.